What's up everyone, and welcome back to the EvolvedJeepin channel. For those who are new to the channel, my name is Dan, and this is my YouTube channel where I typically create videos where I install and review aftermarket parts on my 2019 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. On today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Quadratec Stealth 50-inch interior mounted LED light bar, which I actually already have installed on my Jeep. This is actually Gen 1 of this light bar. And if you didn't know, about 4 to 5 months ago, Quadratec actually released their Gen 2 of this light bar. And on today's video, what we're going to be doing is comparing the Gen 1 to the Gen 2. The point of this video is actually to answer two important questions. First, what are the differences between the Gen 1 and the Gen 2? And then second, is it actually worth upgrading to the Gen 2 if you already have the Gen 1? For myself, when I was in the market to purchase this style of LED light bar, which was probably about 5 to 6 months ago, Quadratec was unfortunately no longer selling the Gen 1, and they had not yet started selling the Gen 2. So what I ended up doing was actually finding a used Gen 1 off Facebook Marketplace, and about 4 months ago, I created a video where I installed the Gen 1 and showed that you can in fact make it work with the Sky One-Touch hardtop. Quadratec states that this style of LED light bar is not compatible with the Sky One-Touch hardtop, but in my video, I showed that with some minor modifications, you can in fact make this style of LED light bar work with the Sky One-Touch hardtop. On today's video, we are not going to be showing you guys how to install the Gen 2 right here, because what I've read online is that the installation for the Gen 2 is pretty much the same as Gen 1. So if you are looking for some information about how to install a Gen 2, what I recommend is if you have a regular hardtop or soft top, that you head over to the Quadratec YouTube channel and check out their installation video. They're really good at creating videos that show you step-by-step how to install it, and I'm sure you'll be able to complete it yourself. If you have a Sky One-Touch hardtop, I suggest that you check out my video and see the steps I did to install this and see what minor modifications I had to make this light bar work with the Sky One-Touch interior trim panel. So guys, you might not be surprised about this, but I ended up purchasing this Gen 2 light bar off Facebook Marketplace. Yes, I know, I really should get off there, but sometimes you come across deals that you just can't pass up. I ended up scoring this for $350, and it is pretty much brand new. It was an open box situation, so $350 is a really good deal considering these go for $500. From what I can tell, it pretty much has everything it needs. I might be missing 1 or 2 bolts, but to be honest, those are things I can pick up if needed. So I'm pretty happy about this. Also, I have a buddy who just bought a Jeep, and he was actually interested in my Gen 1 light bar. So because I already have a buyer for that one, it made sense that I go ahead and buy the new one so that I could create this video and show you guys what the differences are between the Gen 1 and the Gen 2. One thing that's actually super surprising about when I bought this Gen 2 is that the person I ended up buying it from was also a content creator. His Instagram page is jeep_polar.bear. If you have a chance, head over to Instagram and check out his page. He is a really good guy, and his Jeep, or his white Gladiator, is really impressive, so definitely worth checking out his page. I ended up spending probably about 45 minutes chatting with him, talking about Jeep stuff, talking about different things we deal with, and there's a high chance that you actually might see him and his Gladiator on this page in a future video, because he actually might be taking me to check out some of the local off-road trails that I didn't know existed. But that is actually going to be for a future video, so if you want to see if that ends up happening, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you get notified of if that video gets posted. As I mentioned, today's video is all about comparing the Gen 1 to the Gen 2, and the first thing we're going to do is actually go ahead and take out the Gen 1 so that we can lay these side by side and compare them to see what the differences are. Once we've done that, we're then actually going to go ahead and reinstall both of them to see how they fit in the Jeep. The reason I'm doing this is because from what I have heard for the Gen 2, they've actually made some adjustments to the profile to improve visibility through the windshield. So that is definitely something I want to check out to see if they did make that change and to see if it is improved. And then lastly, and probably the most important part, what we're gonna do is test the light performance to see if it's improved. From what I've read online, what they have done is they've actually changed the LEDs to make them a little brighter and also reduce the glare that occurs off the hood. So there's the two things we're definitely gonna have to check out. So what that means is what I'm gonna have to go ahead and do is pop out that light bar, and then we'll come back to show you guys what the difference is. Now that we've got the Gen 1 light bar out of the Jeep, we can now compare the two. So we have the Gen 1 here at the front, and then we have the Gen 2 at the back. The first thing we're going to talk about is probably the most obvious visual change, and it has to do with the LED lights. And what they have done is they have taken their reflectors, which used to be 4.5 inches long in length, and changed them to 8.5 inches long in length. And they've also gone ahead with 5 reflectors to cover the entire light bar instead of 10 on the previous generation. One thing you also might be able to see in this video is that the reflectors on the old one look a little bit smaller in height, but when I measured them, they're actually really the same as the other one. So it's more of a visual thing that's changing it that makes it look that much different. I do want to mention that there is one big change on the edge of the light bar. So on the old generation, the light ended about, maybe an inch away from the edge, where on the new ones, they end about almost 2 to 2.5 inches wide. I think they did this because there was a lot of light leakage that would occur around this edge. So by putting the lights a little bit further into the center of the windshield, it reduces the amount of light that comes over the edge. But this is gonna be something we're gonna have to see once we fire it up and check it out from the inside. Overall, the construction of these are very similar. You have the metal top piece that's holding the reflectors in. You have the L bracket, that's the main body. Both metal here, both the same on each of them. One big difference is to do with the gaskets. So on the old generation, they used like a foam gasket, which is actually pretty thick on the top and the bottom. And on the new one, they're using a silicone gasket right here, which is a lot longer and a lot more flexible. So I'm assuming that they did this because this type of gasket is going to help reduce any light leakage that was occurring and also give it a tighter fit around the trim. Besides that, construction looks to be the same. Size visually looks the same. I didn't measure anything, but they do look the same. One thing to mention is that the Gen 2 is actually a little bit lighter than the Gen 1. Not sure what the difference is and why, but maybe it's the LED lights. But yeah, it's definitely lighter. For the wiring, this is where there is a big difference. The old generation had a hardwired wire right into it, where the new generation has a plug at the end. This is really nice because in the event that you actually have to service the LED light bar and bring it down, what you can do now is simply unplug it. Where with the old one, the wire ran all the way through the A-pillar trim, which meant that if you were removing the light bar, you actually had to remove the A-pillar trim to get that off. So it's really nice that they made it so that you can just remove the LED light bar and not have to take that trim panel off to remove the wire. So guys, besides that, I think those are our main differences. I don't see anything else that's obvious. What we're gonna go ahead and do is install these in the Jeep, and then we're gonna check out how they fit to see if there was any change in the profile. I think that's gonna be the real test. So let's go ahead and install both of these and check them out to compare them. This is the Generation 1 light bar installed and from the outside of the vehicle. Overall, it looks great. I think it works. There's a few things I don't like about it. First, has to do with that red wire right there. I don't like how you can see that. That should have been blacked out. It should be tucked in. I think that's the only spot it happens. I don't think it happens anywhere else, but it's definitely something that's an eyesore in my opinion. One thing I also don't like is the gap between the top edge of the reflector ledge there up to the top. I wish that was just tighter. Possibly that's just a design thing in the way it works, but also possibly that is because we have the Sky One Touch hardtop, and maybe the light bar isn't fitting as tight as it should on a regular hardtop or soft top. But that's still there. I look forward to seeing how that changed a little bit on the Gen 2. Besides that, I still do like it. I think it looks nice and tight. It's definitely way better than exterior light bar. The only thing I would say that's a kind of a downfall to this one is definitely the foam gasket or seals they've used. You can see they definitely become a little bit wavy and distorted. They don't look that clean. So I look forward to checking out the new version to see if the gasket is different. So what we're gonna do now, guys, is go on the inside to see what we think of the fit of the Gen 1. So guys, from the inside of the vehicle, you can definitely see that the Gen 1 light bar definitely reduces some visibility through the windshield. You can see you lose a little bit at the top. For myself, it's usually not a big deal if you're driving on the highway or anything, but in Yonkers, they tend to put the street lights right in the middle of the intersection. So there's times where I have to like lean down to see it. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a little bit more of an inconvenience, and it doesn't give me a reason to remove it. So it's definitely not that bad that I feel I need to remove it. As for the fit of the light bar and the construction on the inside, it sits really nice. It's definitely a nice, clean fit across the part. A couple things I don't like about it are, as mentioned, the foam gasket. You can see the foam gasket just has these ripples all the way along it. I've tried to kind of adjust it once it's in place, but it doesn't seem to work. It's really hard. So unfortunately, that's what you kind of have to live with. So I look forward to see if the new gasket gives me a nice clean line. Fit wise, there's a spot here that has an opening a little bit, so light can come through that. You'll see that when we fire it up. There's also a little gap up top, nothing really concerning, but light will come through. Otherwise, the seal across the top is pretty clean. There's nothing that I worry about. We'll see when we fire the light up to see if there is anything. The gasket on the front, it does its job. I don't really see any concern about that. So this gasket does work, but I still look forward to see if the new gaskets make much different. One thing to talk about is the positioning of the brackets. So these brackets allowed for some adjustability, but with this setup and the Sky One Touch hardtop, you can see I am all the way down. And even if I loosen it and try and push up, it still doesn't go any further. So that might be why I'm losing some visibility. So I look forward to seeing if the new housing works a little bit better and if we gain a little bit more room. Yeah, we have our power switch. That's kind of normal. Yeah, overall, guys, Gen 1 definitely works, but I look forward to seeing how much of an improvement Gen 2 is. So let's go ahead and get that Gen 2 installed to see how the fit on the Gen 2 is. So guys, now we've installed the second generation light bar, and I have to say my first impressions of it are, it is definitely a big improvement. As you can see, the construction of it is a lot better. There's no wires being exposed. Everything looks tight and clean. One thing that I did notice about the spacing above the light and the window is that it seems to be a little bit smaller. I'm not sure if that's an illusion because of the size of the reflectors. Again, I measured the height of them and they're not that much different. So the space shouldn't have changed. Possibly it means that the whole base plate has been adjusted to give it a tighter fit, or possibly the new gasket is giving you the ability to get the unit up tighter. As for the light bar from a distance, you can see it's definitely a little bit more visible. You can definitely see those, orange and white LEDs reflecting. Maybe a little bit of a downfall, maybe you wanted that more sleek look that the old one offered, but I think it's definitely something to live with, especially if it performs better. As we were speaking about the gaskets, this new gasket definitely is a big improvement. You can see you get a nice, crisp, clean line all the way across it. It's definitely gonna be interesting to see how it performs once we fire the light up to see if it actually does help reduce any light leakage. What we're gonna do now is head on inside the vehicle and check out how the fit is from the inside. So guys, for the Gen 2 light bar, I definitely think there's an improvement in the visibility through the windshield. It might not be obvious, but I notice it because of the bolts at the top right here. As you can see, the bolts are not at the bottom of the bracket. They are about I want to say 1/3 of an inch higher than they were on the Gen 1s, which means that we've increased our visibility of height by at least that same amount, which you might think, oh, it's not going to be that noticeable, but I'm sure when we're driving around, it's actually going to be a very big improvement that's going to affect or improve the way we look through the windshield. So definitely something I look forward to seeing. A couple things worth mentioning is I think this is occurring not because of this piece being any different. I think the height of this is the same. I think the depth of it's the same. I think the difference is occurring because of the gaskets. What's happening is you're able to get this steel piece all the way up to the trim piece, where with the other one, the foam gasket was stopping it from going all the way up, which is now giving us that extra 1/3 of an inch. So definitely like that. Couple issues, or one thing that affects the performance here is the fit over here is definitely a little tighter, so the gap's not as big. But I noticed with this gasket, I'm definitely getting a more gap on this little spot here, and there's a new gap right there. So what we're gonna have to do is figure out or see how those do once we fire the light up to see if they are noticeable or an issue. But definitely something to think about with this new gasket. But speaking of the gasket, you can see that gasket along the windshield is super clean, super straight, and definitely looks high quality. Way better than the foam gasket in my opinion. I definitely like the way that looks. It doesn't look cheap and amateurish. Yeah, overall, really happy about the new Gen 2 and can't wait to fire it up to see how it performs. So speaking of that, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and take both these light bars upstairs to a darker area and do a little bit of a light test to see how they perform. Okay, guys, all I can say is wow. I truly did not expect the Gen 2 to be that much brighter than the Gen 1. As you saw in the comparison, the light output is probably like, I want to say 5 times better. That's a random number that I'm throwing out, but it's definitely a big improvement, and I just wasn't expecting it. As for the construction of the items, you can see the difference is very minor. It's the same housing, it's the same kind of idea. The biggest difference is the LED pattern and the reflector, so they went with the different sizes, and also the gasket. The gasket was a big improvement because not only does it look a lot better, but it also gives you the ability for a wider range of adjustability. So it gives you the ability to pull the unit all the way up, as well as push it a little bit closer to the windshield because of how much flex is in those gaskets. So definitely impressed by that. The rest of it, I guess you get that plug, which is also a good improvement, but the rest of it is pretty much the same. It's still the same product. It's just been improved, and it's good to see that Quadratec has in fact improved this. They didn't just come out with a new version that is the same. They came out with a new version that does perform better and does fit better. So super excited about that. As for whether I think this is worth upgrading to, that's a tough question, because do I think you need to upgrade your Gen 1 just because the Gen 2 is available? I want to say no. But if you're someone who's looking for some more light output, then yes, I would say upgrade it. If money is not a question, then simply go ahead and buy the new one and then sell your old one. It's definitely worth it because this one's definitely superior. But if you're someone like me who maybe doesn't have a buyer for the other one, and you're just going to go ahead and do it, that's really a tough question. I think this is, it's a tough one. I don't think you need to, but if you want to, definitely recommend it. So guys, overall, I hope that this video gave you a clear understanding of what the differences are between the Gen 1 and the Gen 2. Unfortunately, I couldn't give you a clear answer on whether it's worth upgrading, because that's kind of a situation of your budget and your spending and your wants and your needs. But I hope that you still enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, feel free to post them below. As usual, guys, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Keep evolving, and we'll see you guys on the next video.